Today, I'm taking on the Kids Colouring Book Challenge. ADC Art Attack has been doing these videos for at least a year now, and his videos have been amazing. You can check out his channel here. I've seen several other amazing artists like Chloe Rose and Temi Danzo jump on this trend recently too, so it's my turn. And if we're doing a kids colouring book, what better place to start than with Disney? In choosing who to colour, I was on the fence between something new like The Mandalorian with the challenge of the metallic surfaces, or the classic Disney and the princesses. So I've actually decided to choose a Disney princess today, and I went to the Disney website to see what range of colouring pages they had available to print. Choosing a printable colouring page instead of a colouring book gives me more flexibility in using the paper I want to use instead of being limited to the paper that the publisher has chosen. However, it does bring a lot of limitations in what is available. If you're wanting to find some good colouring pages online, I have a huge range on my own website and an article I've put together with a massive list of websites where you can find free colouring pages direct from the artists and the publishers without breaking copyright. In the case of Disney, there are a lot of stolen colouring pages online, so the only way to be sure that my source was legit was to go direct to Disney themselves. Ariel has always been a favourite, but I recently did a drawing of Ariel, so I don't really want to do her again as a colouring page. I'd probably like to do someone different. Princess Tiana might be fun. I would actually love to do Beauty and the Beast, although I'm not really keen on all this big border thing that they've got going on. I think I'd rather an actual scene. Same with Snow White. I'd actually really like to colour this one, but I really don't like the idea of this fancy border that they've added. You can even colour it on the internet. So I've chosen Tiana and I've printed her on some Nina Bristol vellum cardstock. You can see my other paper recommendations on the full video I did last week and why I think this is a great choice for markers and pencils. I've printed my page very lightly because the original lines are quite thick and I really want to replicate the nice Disney look of the fine coloured lines. This is something you can do in Photoshop or with some printers, or you can add a layer of white ink before you start colouring. I'm not using my colour catalogue today. Instead, I'm using reference photos of Tiana because I want to replicate the original Disney look as much as possible. So I'm choosing my colours based on what seems to be the closest to the colours in my reference images, even though the lighting is different in each of these images. So I found a selection of browns, a selection of blues, and I've got a spare piece of paper to test them out first so I can choose which colours are the best match. I'll do the same for my markers, and I won't need as many different colours of the markers because these will be used more as a base layer, whereas my pencils will be doing the more specific shading and highlights. With my colours ready, it's time to start on my base layer of marker. I've decided to start on her skin. So first I'm using my lighter marker colour and just doing a simple coat over the base layer of her skin. This is the same process I taught you in my previous video on how to draw skin with alcohol markers. I'm quite happy with how this is turning out so far, even before we add the pencils. Which, come to think of it, I probably should have swatched on the markers because this can completely change how the colour looks. So I'm quickly doing some extra swatching, and I'm glad I did because some of these browns that I thought would be perfect actually really don't work with these markers underneath. As I'm filling in her facial details and adding some more shading, I feel like this isn't quite looking right anymore. Wait, are her eyes in the right spot? Some of these lighter colours are making her skin look pasty. I don't know about this. I feel like the angle... You know what? I reckon the angle of the eyes is wrong because I'm sitting back here when I should be looking at it from here because her eyes look totally wrong. Should I do Shone? This is bad. It can't be that bad. Yeah, you should probably start over. Oh, I don't want to start over. I've already been doing this for about an hour. Yeah, but better to start over now than to regret it in a few more hours. So this is something I almost never do, but today I just don't feel happy with this and it's better to start over now than continue frustrated from here. So I've got some Aussie chocolates, I've taken a short break and I'm ready to start again. This time I'll outline the facial details first so I can see the lines underneath and get the proportions right. This actually looks like her now. And I'll be careful not to go overboard on the skin tones. It actually looked okay until I started fiddling and adding too many layers, so less is more. Let's just quickly compare. Here's my first attempt, and I'm really glad I started over on this one. The first attempt was good practice, and the final page looks much better. Moving on, let's get her hair done. And then for these gloves, I'm not sure if they're supposed to be white or blue, but all the pictures look blue, so we're gonna go with that. If you're new to this channel, the idea of a professional artist doing a children's coloring book might seem a bit unusual, but if you're a regular viewer, this isn't really a whole lot different to what we usually do here. You see, I create my own coloring books for adults, and this channel is all about teaching you how to use pencils, markers, and other mediums to create amazing art. So this challenge is really just an excuse to pull out a Disney coloring book instead of one of my own. But if this is something you'd like to see more of, let me know in the comments. Tell me what I should color next or what challenge you'd like to see me take on. And don't forget to press the subscribe button for more coloring tips and ways to get creative. So as I'm doing the base layer of the dress with the markers, they are a little bit blotchy at first while they're wet, but as I do more layers of the same color, while it's getting a little bit darker, it is smoothing out that blotchiness, and as they dry, it is looking just great. This paper is handling the extra moisture surprisingly well. Some papers might buckle. If you want to know more about paper, I did just publish that in-depth guide to my favorite papers on my channel last week. As I'm adding more, the paper is starting to warp slightly, so I need to stop and let this dry. We can smooth out the rest of the texture with our pencils. For the shading of the dress, I'm adding shadows where the folds are and where it feels natural. I'm also using this color to add a slight outline, which is typical of Disney's style and one of the main reasons I wanted to hide the black lines. I do want this dress to look smooth, so I'm using some lighter pencils and my short white pencil to smooth out and burnish my pencil shading along her dress. This is lightening some of the areas a bit too much, so I'm adjusting and adding some more shadows as well. Between her sash, the gloves, and the dress, I'm adding more shadows bit by bit as they become obvious to me. Usually as I start adding some shadows, other areas look flat, and so it becomes more obvious where else shadows should be added. So just start in the easy areas and build up as you go. She's almost done at this point, but let's just take a moment to add some sparkles, because sparkles are fun and I can't help myself. As I'm finishing up Tiana's dress, it's confession time. I've never actually seen The Princess and the Frog. It's one of the few Disney movies still on my list to see, and I don't know how I've missed it for so long. I think I'll have to watch it this weekend. But I bring this up because I've noticed that some of these pictures of Tiana show her gloves or dress sparkling while others don't. So I'm not really sure if it's her gloves, sash, or dress that are supposed to sparkle because every picture is different. So I found this actual scene on Disney's YouTube channel. This will also help me to get some context for the background colors when we start coloring that shortly. But it seems like her gloves are actually white. Her dress is quite a bit lighter than it looks in the other photos, and it has some sparkles. So I think we have to add some more sparkles, but before we do, let's not forget little, what's the frog's name? Prince Naveen, looking a little green. So we are adding sparkles all over her dress now with my favorite white pens. I've got here my Sakura Decorese and I've got my Uniball Signo. I've also pulled out my Jelly Roll, and if you've been watching this channel and if you've watched my white gel pen review video, you'll know that I don't generally like or recommend this pen for using on colored pencils. I'm trying it today because I really want this fine point, but like I've said in the past, it's not working well on pencils. It's better on markers and it's actually great on markers, but it's not really helping me out today. So I'm sticking with the Decorese and the Uniball Signo to try and add as many sparkles as we can. I've also tried doing a few little stars, but that's not really working out for me. I really do need a finer point for those. So we're just gonna work with different sized dots to try and create that sparkling effect. Now it's time for our background. If it weren't for the lines that are already drawn in this background, I would probably leave this picture here. I really like how Tiana has turned out and I'm a little scared that I might totally mess this up if I don't do a good job on the background here. I want the background to be fairly dark, just like the scene in the movie, because the dark background will help our main characters stand out. So what I assume is actually a pink and white wall is more of a purple color, and we're going with that. I also don't want the background to be as perfect and crisp as our characters, because that's typically what Disney does. Their characters are cartoon and their backgrounds are often painted and a little more artistic. So our lines don't have to be as perfect and our textures shouldn't be smoothed out as much as our characters. I worry that we might lose some of our characters on this dark wall, especially with Tiana's dark hair, so I'm going to add a bit of a glow around Tiana and the frog by using a lighter marker and blending it out to the darker background. It's not perfect because my markers are quite different in values here, but I can tidy this up with pencils more later. Okay, this chest of drawers. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to do here, but it's not looking quite right. I wanted it to look white, but in a dark room, so I've gone with grey. I'm going to just work on our base colors for now and hope I can figure this out when I bring in my pencils later. With markers done, it's back to our pencils. I'm adding some more shading to all the different background areas with my pencils. Basically at this point, I'm just looking for anything that is a little flat and asking myself, could I add another shadow here? Okay, back to this dreaded chest of drawers. I think this is supposed to be like a classic royal gold trim dressing table, but the simplified line work and the dark lighting is going to make it hard to create something so detailed. I've previously done a full video tutorial on drawing gold, and I've got my swatches here that I created in that video. So I'll try to cover up my ugly marker work with one of these swatches and see if we can create some gold trim without messing this up further. I found a reference photo with a similar shape of the part I'm coloring, but the colors are totally different, so I'm just looking at how the light bounces off the reflective gold surface here. So I think being close to something like this can be really hard because you're looking at each color and line so closely instead of looking at the whole picture. Because right now, this is frustrating and ugly from my perspective and not at all what I was hoping for. And now I'm getting impatient and I've just put a big black mark on and I don't really like it. This might be one of those walk away and it will look better later things, but right now I feel like I've just made an ugly mess of these drawers. It's okay, this is just the background. Tiana is our focus here. I will try and add a bit more shading on the side of these drawers to maybe draw less attention to them and hide them in the dark background a little bit more, and we'll see how that goes. And I think I'm finally done. At first, I found this page to be harder than I expected. Admittedly, I haven't colored skin very often at this point, so that's probably why I found it to be such a challenge, but I think the perfectionist in me was struggling with trying to make Tiana look as accurate to the original Disney version of this story as possible. I was treating this like a realism challenge instead of enjoying the process of coloring. Once I got through the skin and hair though, I did start to relax and enjoy the process more. I was able to use my intuition rather than rely on my references for the curves in her dress, and adding the sparkles is always fun. The background didn't turn out as well as I would have liked, but it does provide a good stage for my main characters and they stand out well against the dark surroundings. So overall, I am really happy with how this turned out. And I do think I'd like to try this challenge again. So now that we're done, I am going to watch a movie.
No, wait. I've got your next challenge already picked out.
Stormtrooper's a white shade. So I guess we're done?